My name is Priscilla Bergia. I have spent the last 40 years at least going to Washington and talking to people like yourself, going to see our congressmen, our senators, and particularly always going about our VA benefits. And if it weren't for organizations like the American Legion and the VFW and many others that have millions of members, and they have people who can vet the bills and everything, our VA system today would be in far worse shape than it is because the government runs it. And it's only because of those watchdog organizations it hasn't become just a total shell of what it was originally intended to be. Where are we going to have the organization to be the watchdog over government to make us think that we can entrust our health care to government to oversee, which amounts to anything I've heard from 7 to 12% of our economy? And where in this bill do we see anything that addresses the lawsuits in this country, which is a big part of what has driven up the cost?
So 2 questions. So where are the watchdogs organizations? And not to be too simplistic, but you're standing with one of them right now. This is the watchdog organization. Well, it is. Well, in addition to those, there are small organizations like the American Medical Association, the American Pediatric Association, the College of American Physicians. By the way, all of those have been very much active. I've been lobbied to death by all these organizations. And I'm getting to that. The question is, let me just answer one at a time. So there are many avenues if your representatives are willing to listen. Now, tort reform. I happen to have a political challenger who stood up the other day and said, I'm a trial attorney and I will never vote for tort reform. Well, that's not me. In fact, we have embarked on a very, let me just be clear, there's nothing in the bill about tort reform. Nothing.
Big mistake.
I don't disagree necessarily. I don't. I'm just telling you what's there. This bill does not address the legalities of medical care. It does not. Whether or not that will happen, I can't tell you. I can tell you this. I can tell you one thing that's happening. There has been a very clear understanding of where some of the specific threats and cost increases to medical practice exist. There are 2 broad categories of malpractice. One of them is pain and suffering payments, so we'll talk about that in a second. And the other one are death benefits and injury benefits. Now, here's a very callous statement. Insurance actuaries with very good accuracy can tell you what you're worth. They can. If you die, they can tell you what the value of that death is. If you are injured, they can tell you what the value of that lost work is. Very accurately. What has caused challenges in our country and has butted up against the constitutional guarantee of trial by jury are pain and suffering payments. How much is someone's pain worth? That's a very hard thing to measure. 2 states have taken on a challenge. They have now capped pain and suffering payments with the theory that if we can cap those, and this was a joining of the legal profession and of the medical profession and the insurance industry. They said, listen, we don't care if it's $1 million, $1.5 million, we just want a cap so we can plan for it and set our rates accordingly. And in California and Texas, they said, if you do this, we will see lower practice premiums. Now, this is pretty recent that this has happened, and people are watching to see if that is one of the answers. But again, with great candor, it's not in this bill. However, a lot of people state by state are looking at it. And let me just wrap up medical malpractice with a challenge that someone like me faces. Medical malpractice insurance lawsuits are tried in state courts. They are not, by and large, tried in federal courts. So it's very difficult and very complicated for the federal government to reach into state law and mandate those kinds of changes. We have 50, it's true, sir. I mean, you can disagree with me, but we have 50 different court systems in the United States, which is why California and Texas moved independently and first.
But you can mandate energy taxes and everything else like in cap and
Lawyers are big contributors, maybe. That's the problem.
Okay, just a second. Hold on, folks. There is no doubt that like every other special interest that has a stake in anything that is legislated, that bodies of attorneys, who by the way are split on this as well, have a voice. There's no doubt about it. There are many special interests. Most of them are not negative. Most of them are very positive. I was lobbied by a group of Catholic nuns. Now, I grew up in a very Catholic family. I've never been so scared in my life. Ma'am, you've been very patient over here in white.